Computer. All right, everybody, welcome back to 15 Minutes of Love, a place and a space to elevate us to the vibrational frequency of love and to counteract all of the negative vibes that are current in the world today. Oh, and it says life preparing. My guest today is a dear, dear friend who I cannot wait to give a hug to in real life, in person, when all of this is through. Ros Place. Ros, thank you so much for being here.
You are so welcome. Thank you so sincerely for inviting me. I love every moment with you, Lona. You are a special.
I feel the same about you. So Ros, I would love for you to tell the audience a little bit about you. And then the question that everyone gets is, what is your definition of love?
Okay, so thank you for inviting me. Hello, everybody. I'm Ros Place. I am a guardian angel communicator, and I'm also founder of Oracle Card Academy and Positive Chair. And I believe in the power of positive conversation, and that when you ask the right question, the future always changes before the answer even arrives. And your question about love, I've really been pondering that. It's such a good question. Love is lots of different things to me. And I can think of love when I think about my relationships most clearly. And when you're in love, or when you're looking at your children, when you're looking into their eyes, that feeling of love just completely engulfs me, and nothing else in the world matters. I don't hear anything else, I don't see anything else, and I can't always access that. I can't always access that feeling of love. So my definition of love is seeing what's positive, is seeing what's working in a person, in a situation. It's moving my perspective into a helpful direction where I feel better than I did before. And I think that love is something which I aspire to feel in the highest possible way, and in my daily life, really focusing on asking myself questions which can shift my perspective into a positive direction, takes me into an energy of love. That's what love means to me. And it moves me to create everything that I create and have the relationships that I have, and I enjoy being in that energy.
I love it. And so things that come up for me when I hear that is love is an energy, love is a frequency, and love is a state of being. One of the things that you said is you can see what's possible. I think is something, like that's something that has been coming up for me with each guest. Like when we are in the frequency and the state of being of love, and because I think a lot of people relate love to romantic love, but love is so much more than that. But when you can be, even in times like this, in the frequency of love, you could see what is possible outside of the pain, the grief, the limitations, the obstacles, the challenges. So love is the frequency needed for creation.
Absolutely. And I think that we can take ourselves, at least I can take myself into that frequency when I feel empowered about what I can see, about my perspective, and about what I can do. I'm an Aries, okay? So I am nuts about doing. I am
Yes.
such a doer. And when I don't feel as though I can do anything about a situation that I'm in, it's not a good place for me to be. And it's not the reality. So for me, when I ask myself a question, when I shift my perspective into a more helpful direction through a positive conversation, through something which lifts me, then I find that I'm much more able to see what I can then do, as you say, see what the possibilities are. We know that there are possibilities, but it's not always easy, is it, to, when we're engulfed by something which is heavy or challenging, to take a step in an improved direction and see what you can do. But as an Aries girl, I'm afraid I'm very much, I need to be doing something.
I love it.
It's just the way that I am.
I love it. I love it. And it's interesting because I'm finalizing an astrology certification right now. And that is very much the Aries energy. It's cardinal energy. It's creation energy. It's go, go, go. And if that's not satisfied, and we've just entered Aries season. So if you're watching this months from now, we're actually creating this video in the beginning of Aries season. And so, even though the world has been halted because of the virus, a lot of us, and I don't know how you feel about this, Ross, but I feel like there's been so much, people are stepping up into being what they say they want to be, and doing from that state of being.
Absolutely, I agree completely. And I think the doing we're seeing is a lot of creativity, creative ways of looking at situations. We talked, didn't we, just before you came on, about stuff that had changed in your life. And it's like looking at situations creatively from a different perspective. What can I do? How can I adapt? How can I seize the opportunities that can exist? How can I learn? Being creative and doing is something which I think is, I agree, I see happening a lot now. And I think it's a really good thing.
Awesome. So this is the next question I typically ask is, how do you express the vibrational frequency of love, which for most of my guests tends to be the work that they do or the topic that they're here to share. And I want to hear your answer, and also I want to start sharing a little bit more about this positive conversation, right? This format, this way that you approach your work, which I think is amazing, and so much, it's so needed in any sphere. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've always believed in the power of positive conversations. It's the way that I've been. But a situation that happened, of all places in the world, in Long Beach, really cemented it for me. And I visit America a lot. I love America, and I love seeing my lovely friends in LA. And I was visiting on one occasion, and I knew that my friend's mum had been poorly for some time. And I asked her, as a guardian angel communicator, if my friend would like me to go and sit with her mum and be with her mum. And she said she would love that. Thank you so much. So we pulled up outside this lovely beachside bungalow in Long Beach, me and my friend. And the sun went behind a cloud. And I remember thinking the weather was changing to
Mm,
match the mood. And I was nervous. I was really nervous. And when I'm nervous, my throat goes tight and my heart beats and I get a dry mouth. It's really embarrassing, actually. It's something that I've always kind of been challenged by. And I got out of the car and my legs were wobbling and I walked into Marilyn's house. And Marilyn's house, I was greeted by the tiny frame of a woman in a massive hospital bed in what was once her sitting room. And all around her were pictures of her family. There were
mm,
flowers, there were mementos of her life. And I knew that this would be one of Marilyn's last conversations. She knew that she was passing away. She was at home to pass away and to be with her family. And I wanted the conversation that we had to be a positive conversation. Even though I was walking into someone's home who was at the end of their life, I wanted it to be a positive conversation. And I've witnessed what happens when you know how to ask the right questions. The future always changes
mm,
before the answer arrives. And so I pulled up a chair next to Marilyn very gently and I started to ask her about her life. I started to ask her about all of her lovely memories and the things that were hilarious that she'd done and the things that she'd enjoyed. And she laughed and she cried. And she always brought the conversation back to her family because she was really worried about leaving her family and missing them. And so I said to her, I asked her this question. I said, have you ever thought about sending your family a sign from heaven so that they'll always know it's you? I said, is there a song that you like, Marilyn? Is there like an animal that you particularly love? Have you got a special number? And she looked at me and I said, because if there is, tell them what that is. And then when you're in heaven, they'll know it's you. And I spent a wonderful afternoon with Marilyn and we laughed and we talked about wonderful things. But when I left, I didn't know whether she was going to choose a sign. I didn't know whether she was going to share any of our conversation with her children. And it was a few days later, just a few days later, and I was at home in England and my friend sent me a lovely message and she said, Mum passed away. She passed away with her family around her in peace, exactly as she had wanted. And she said, Ros, it's a hummingbird. She said, the sign that Mum chose to communicate with us is a hummingbird. And it's already showing up.
oh my gosh.
And that is the power of opening up a positive conversation at a time where there's so much sadness. It's beginning a positive conversation and asking the right question and knowing that you will change the future even before the answer arrives.
Wow.
And so that belief that I've always had about the power of positive conversations, that belief about asking the right question and how you change the future before the answer even comes, was really cemented for me in that day with Marilyn. And it moved me to really step into sharing that work with the world in a way that can really empower, encourage, give people the confidence to create positive conversations and to have questions that they can ask which will change their future. And in this situation, the answer will arrive.
Mm.
And I would love to play with you and show you what that's like, because it's for everyone.
I would love that. I mean, I'm so moved just hearing that story because I know I would have loved to have that framework for when my dad was passing away. And we have our own little signs, but to have like concretely, have communicated and have that already had that created so that we have that even more. My assumption is that we would have seen more signs and it would have been more magical because we've had the dialogue instead of us thinking that this is a sign that's being given to us. So what a beautiful story and what a beautiful foundation for creating what you've created.
And it will always give me that conviction in what I'm doing. When
Yeah.
you actually see, I was so nervous. I can't begin to tell you. It's like, is it okay to walk in? I've never met Marilyn before. Is it okay to walk into her home and to begin to have this kind of conversation with her? But it's the power of a positive conversation. It's asking the right questions. It's listening to what people are saying. And it's being able to ask a question which, when we ask ourselves questions, we need answers. If we ask a question, we need answers. And it did really move me towards, when I got back, reach out to work with a hospice, a local hospice, to work with all individuals who are at the end of their life and their families, but predominantly young people. Because when someone's passing away, there's so much sadness, so much grief, and people don't know how to be around the individual that's passing away.
Right.
And asking the right questions, having a framework, as you put it, to know how you can powerfully create positive conversations and ask beautiful questions. And when I got back and I was talking to Eddie about it, he said to me, this is something that would really create so much peace for people, and it's definitely in my heart to share this within that area at end of life. But why wait till end of life? Why wait to ask positive questions which shift your perspective into a helpful direction until the end of life? I think at the end of life, in many ways, people are at peace. They feel more open. They're more receptive. They've got a different way of looking at their lives and their experience here on earth. And I've witnessed the power of positive conversations by asking the right questions. And
Oh, we froze for a little bit, so we're just gonna wait to come back.
how that
It's saying that my internet is unstable, so I'm gonna turn off my video for a hot minute while we
absolutely
get to
changes the right question. You'll see that everybody's take on this, everybody's answer